In 1952, the Vatican received word of a nun committing suicide at the St. Carta Abbey in Romania. They dispatched Father Burke, a priest who had had a failed exorcism hanging over his head, and Sister Irene, a nun who had yet to take her vows but had been receiving mysterious visions herself. And what they discovered, well, is the plot of The Nun. This is part of the Conjuring universe. It is a prequel to the Conjuring films. The Warrens themselves don't appear, well, they appear at the very beginning and then they appear again at the very end. And I'll try to not spoil too much of the film, but there's going to be kind of a lot of spoiling of the film, unfortunately. Basically, the priest and the nun, who was the priest, Father Burke, I can't remember the actor's name, but the Sister Irene is played by Tessa Farmiga, sister of Vera Farmiga, who plays Estella Warren in the other Conjuring movies. And this one's a little bit more tied to it than Annabelle, because I don't believe the Warrens appear in any of those movies. But anyway, and I mean, like I said, it begins with Estelle Warren receiving painting the picture of the nun and receiving the vision of her husband Ed's death. And we then jump to 1952, where the incident happens. The dispatch, where they meet a farmer who's the one who discovered the body of the nun at the Holy Ground. The farmer is French-Canadian. His name is Maurice Frenchy. I can't think what his last name is. Terrell. We'll just call him Frenchy for sake of purpose in this. But he's the one who discovered the body, and he's basically the guy who's in charge of delivering food to the Abbey. And as they go to investigate, things begin to happen, obviously. They discover that the Abbey was constructed by the Duke of St. Carta, and he basically was a witchcraft practitioner who summoned a demonic entity known as Valak the Defiler. And only through the action of the Catholic Church were they able to seal it away via a relic containing the blood of Christ. And the nuns have guarded that ever since. Unfortunately, World War II and its evils have given the Valak enough power that is beginning to seep out into the world. And the nuns are trying their best to keep it back. And through various discoveries, such as Father Burke finding the boy who died under his possession while he was trying to exorcise the demons from him, leading him into a graveyard where Burke winds up getting buried in a grave with his name on it. But it's a dead ringer grave where they have the bell, so if you were accidentally buried alive, you can ring it, so it allows Sister Irene to come to his aid. At another point, Irene actually gets locked off in the convent while trying to interview several nuns. She's forced to spend the night. As this happens, the Valak begins to attack, and there's actually a really, really good scene where the nuns they believe that perpetual prayer it wards the demon off, and Irene is doing this herself, and as this is happening, the demon basically, it starts to whip her. You just see, the back of her habit rips open, and there's just you just hear these kind of whip cracks, and then at the end of it, there's a pentagram carved on this. But eventually, Frenchie he leaves, and he comes back to aid them, and they get reunited eventually, and basically what they discover is the nuns were killed long ago, possibly for years. The Abbey has been dead for a long time, and it is no longer sacred. They begin to work to find the relics so that they can try to seal the evil away. This is what leads to the big moments you see in a lot of the trailers. The door with the writing, with the Latin script that says "God ends here." Like I said, the aforementioned relic, the key that opens everything up, the misdirection jump scare that's in all the trailers you see, where the one nun is behind her and then the other nun comes from the side and pins her to the wall. They get separated, of course, because it's a horror movie. They always get separated, don't they? And basically everyone has to work together. Frenchie comes to, at one point, Valak begins to make a move. Valak manages to trap Sister Irene. Sister Irene has actually taken her vows at this point too. Sister Irene in a pentagram and has surrounded him with demonic nuns, basically, for lack of a better term. And Frenchie manages to come to her aid and get to her. And he discovers that she's been possessed, but then he manages to use a bit of the blood of Christ from the relic and smears it on her to cast Valak out. Valak goes after Frenchie, and this does lead to somewhere. But then Father Burke seems to arrive and starts trying to exorcise Valak, and it provides enough for Sister Irene to use the relic one more time to seal Valak away. Or so we think, because we jump 20 years later and it turns out Maurice himself was possessed, because we basically go back to the beginning of the first Conjuring film, where Estelle and the Warrens are giving their basically dissertation on the possession, and they point out that Frenchie had a third grade education, but could suddenly speak Latin better than anyone. And as this is happening, because Frenchie grabbed Estella Warren, she saw the vision of the nun, and that's how everything comes back to this. And like I said, the Perron family from the first Conjuring is watching this, so I guess I hopefully explained this in a way that made this make sense. Sorry. But overall, the film is alright. It gets a little jump scare heavy. Like, by the time the big jump scare that you saw in the trailers happens, it's like we've gone through about 5 or 6 of them. Like I said, there's some good ones. There's the scene with the praying, that I said earlier. There's another one where Frenchie is trying to leave, and he encounters an apparition of the nun who committed suicide in the graveyard, and he actually wards it off by grabbing one of the tombstone, the cross graves that are in the graveyard, and using that, and he actually carries it with him back to the village. There's a little bit of like Romanian folklore in there. They talk about how you have to, when a loved one dies, you have to cover all the mirrors in their house, or else their soul will get trapped and they'll become a ghost. And I will say this too on the plus side, there's some really good scenery in all this. Like, I don't know if they actually shot in Romania. I'm guessing they probably didn't, but whatever they did, it was a really nice, nice scenery. The abbey itself is really great looking. Does keep a pretty decent atmosphere, even in the daytime. It's kind of dark and imposing in a way. Like I said, the drawback is it does get jump scare heavy. It gets, it's like, there's a lot of, oh, there's someone behind you. Oh, no, there's no one behind you. Oh, wait, this attacks, and oh, wait, the sister, the Reverend Mother is possessed. Oh, wait, okay, wait, it's a corpse too, and that sort of stuff happens. But I would say in the similar themed ghost movie I saw this year, Winchester, I kind of like that a bit more because that wasn't so reliant on jump scares, but overall this was not a bad film. I'm going to give The Nun a B.
TGIF as the girls fixing Dad up.
With a love connection.
Full house. Then Eddie gets straight A's.
Can't believe it.
You can't believe it.
Family Matters. Then Balky tackles the business side of pro football.
Nepos will have the Raiders. The Raiderettes, the silver and black. You mean Bo knows sheep herding?
Perfect Strangers, followed by Just the 10 of Us. It's another great TGIF with Full House, Family Matters, Perfect Strangers, and Just the 10 of Us.
Friday.
Okay, trailer time, and not really much new here, unfortunately. We got The Grinch again. Not The Grinch itself, I mean. If you recall, a couple of times a few movies back earlier this year, I talked about how I was at the AMC theater and I saw this, and they had these little vignettes for The Grinch that kept playing in between all the trailers. They had this happening again, except not for The Grinch, it was for A Star Is Born. Basically, they had 4 segments from the movie, from A Star Is Born, and yeah, so like they were all over the place. It really didn't make me want to see the movie anymore. I mean, the trailer itself was kind of okay, but yeah, now you're just annoying me, and unfortunately it comes out the same week as Venom, so I'm going to be seeing Venom, actually. But anyway, after that we had Hellfest again, then Venom again, then Overlord again, and then we had one of only 2 new trailers, The Hate You Give, which is based on a novel, though it's a little more realistic than you think. It's about a community, particularly a young girl named Star, who a friend who happens to be a boy she's in a car with this boy, and they get pulled over, and they're both African American, and he gets killed by a white police officer, and yeah, obviously everything that sort of comes out of that, and Star deciding whether or not she should protest or just keep quiet. And then after that we have the Halloween 40th anniversary H4O, I guess you could call it that, with the new Jamie Lee Curtis one that's coming out. So yeah, I mean, that one actually looks pretty good. Kind of looking forward to that one. We'll get more into that if we ever, maybe if I review it, which I probably will. But anyway, next video is probably going to be the Predator movie review. After that, it's going to be the Harbinger random trade review. After that, it'll be House of the Clock and its Walls. And though I guess around that weekend too, there's going to be WWE Hell in a Cell. See you all next time. Hey guys, is there a movie you want me to tackle? Even if it's some stinker like Baywatch or the Emoji Movie or something else? Check out my Patreon at Sleepy Time for Cat Productions. See how you can make that happen.